You ever have one of those moments where you're reading a Bible verse and maybe it's a verse you've read a ton of times before, but this time when you read it, it just jumps off the page at you and you really feel like God's trying to reveal something to you? That happened to me this week. I was reading through one of my daily devotionals and I read 2 Timothy 1:7, which says, God has given us a spirit not of fear and timidity, but of power and love and self-discipline. Some translations say self-control. I was in the NLT, which says self-discipline, and that was the part that stood out to me because self-discipline is something I'm always trying to work to have more of in my life. And when I think about the times in my life where I've had the most discipline in certain areas, those are the times that I've had the least fear in those areas. And I realize that what this verse is trying to explain is that power, love, and self-discipline are opposites of fear. One of the biggest examples in my life I can think of is when it comes to money. I used to be someone who had no discipline when it came to money. I was very irresponsible and reckless. I would spend every dollar I had and then some. I didn't live on a budget. I didn't give or tithe. I didn't save anything or control my spending. I would rack up tons of credit card debt. Christmas is coming up. I remember every Christmas, my wife and I would put all of our Christmas spending on credit cards, and then we'd spend the whole next year trying to, just making minimum payments. And then by the time the next Christmas rolled around, we still hadn't paid off last year's Christmas, and we just do that whole thing all over again. And when we finally decided to get serious about our finances, and we got on the Dave Ramsey plan, we bought into that. We started living on a budget. We started controlling our spending. We started giving, tithing to our church. We started trying to manage our money the way God teaches us to in the Bible. And we realized that the more discipline we had when it came to our finances, the less fear we had. Because the fear we used to struggle with was like, how are we going to get the bills paid this month? Which bill are we going to have to push off because we spent too much money and now we can't pay it? Which bill is going to have to get behind? It was always this constant fear, this nagging thing that would be over us. But when we started developing the discipline of managing our money well, then we didn't have as much of that fear, because we were doing what God wanted us to do. One of my favorite authors is this guy named Jocko Willink, and he writes about leadership, and his personal motto is discipline equals freedom. He says, if you have the discipline to do the things you should do, then you'll have the freedom to do the things you want to do. So I think that's exactly the message that 2 Timothy 1:7 is trying to convey. Because if you have the discipline to live on a budget, if you have the discipline to give back to God first, if you have the discipline to manage your money the way God teaches us to in the Bible, then you're going to have freedom. You're going to have the freedom to know that your bills are going to be paid, freedom to not have to owe people money, freedom to not have to live in fear when it comes to money.